I think on one page it said 116 apartments, and I think it was page 6 it said 96 apartments. So I don't know if that was a information they gave us prior, so it was just fit the content of information within the document. And my other concern, I suppose, is there any room to move?
So can you point out where those two numbers are? I'm just really interested that we can set up.
Yeah, so it was, and obviously their first.
In the business plan? Is it in the business plan or is it in just the
in the report?
Yeah, I think it was an earlier document they provided.
That's fine. Let's not.
I did circle it. I can
through the chair, if it relates to an earlier document, their original housing EOI only proposed to put developments on two sides, so it would relate to that previous development.
Yeah, it was earlier.
But I'm happy to clarify if you can let us know.
Yeah, I think it was an expression of interest documents, correct.
Yeah.
I think that's what's happened, Councillor, is that we've gone from one, it's actually evolved as we've gone along and the numbers have changed.
And I suppose the question about rent per week, they've stated 967 per week, and then increase of 2.75 per year up until the 5th year, and then after that it'll be rate adjusted. I suppose in regards to that, has the council thought about, over that 20-year period, if we do have another boom and bust cycle, what are the proponents expecting to get out of that? If they're going from like 1,000 or 1,100, 1,200 in that 5-year period, and we have another down cycle, I'm just concerned we'll go back to 250 a week if they're going up rental prices. So is that sustainable for the proponent? I suppose to me, even the 967 per week starting rent is not really sustainable for lower income earners either. Is there any room to move on that?
Through the chair, the developers are very confident that they can achieve the rents that they've specified. It's been tested by the city growth team. My understanding is that they've likely got some significant corporate clients lined up, and that's what's giving them the certainty. I can't comment on who, but they're very confident that they can achieve the rents they've speculated. It's not intended to be a low-income housing product.
Any other questions? I have one. The $55.8 million. How confident are we that we can get the finance to put it in a loan facility, this project?
Very confident.
Very confident.
Yep. I don't know, officers, Adrian, did you want to expand on that at all in terms of your thinking?
Yeah, so 2 lines of inquiry that we've gone down. One is with WA Treasury Corporation, who's typically a local government financier, a state entity. And the other one's with Westpac, who's our current banking service provider. So WATC has a form you fill out basically with the formula that's listed borrowing capacity in it. So at the moment, we've got a really strong balance sheet. In terms of our assets, we've also got basically no debt at the moment. So we've got a really strong debt capacity currently. WATC, we'd have no issue getting that level of debt. And Westpac, we've spoken to our local relationship manager, who's basically said exactly the same thing, based on the strength of our balance sheet, strength of our cash flows, existing debt position, which is next to nothing. He's very confident that we would comfortably get not only that volume of finance, but also get it at a really good rate because the risk premium on us is quite low. So those are the 2 avenues we've looked at. And throughout the business plan, there's a comparison of both of those different options and also a hybrid option that utilises the Westpac rate as a variable for the first few years, and then we fix it at a later date. So we're looking at utilising both of those sources at some point during that term. And from everything we've been told and gone through the formula with WTC, that we know we should getting that amount of finance. We also, there is very minimal debt requirement with the long-term financial plan as well. So there's nothing there that would impact in the future by taking this debt now.
So, any other questions?
Yeah, so maybe, Mayor, just to kind of close it out, I do want to thank the team in City Growth, because this is, we know that this is part of a really extensive piece of work over a long period of time. to, look at Project Dorothy, to look at our housing challenges. We're trying to squeeze every opportunity on every available piece of land. And I think this is a proposal that brings a really low risk to the city, but brings new stock and also quickly deploys stock to the local environment. So you've got to couple that with the proposal that we've already got out to community for consideration, and we're also, continuing to lobby state government for a capital injection. From time to time I hear positive signals and other times I don't. I think state government's feeling a bit wobbly while they find their feet in post-election, but I'd be really surprised if we don't see some form of capital contribution. So I think what you're seeing here is actually the worst case. I think it's a low risk, but it's our worst case scenario. Actually, sort of quietly confident that we might also get a contribution from state government. And for my state government colleagues who are listening, I'd really encourage you to consider this favourably because the Pilbara needs it.
You two are listening. You mean like in the
in the EFOS, yeah.
Or to let them know as well, I will be in Perth on Thursday and Friday this week if they want to chat to me.
That's right.
I'm happy to chat to them.
We're continuing to talk to Treasury about how the state government contribute to these projects. So we don't think it should be local government doing this alone. The state government needs to come to the party.
Okay, I agree, and I want to thank your team as well because it's a mammoth effort. We've tasked the city, the council, with finding solutions for housing, and this has been a mammoth task to put these proposals together and find a path forward for our community. So now we can make a decision on that and see if we can get some housing happening in town.
And just another quick question about the public submissions. Are they going to send those out to local residents as well?
Good question. And local residents around those developments. Is that are you including that in our canvassing approach?
We hadn't, but we can.
Yeah, I think that. I think that's a great idea to include a letter drop. What do you think, Director?
I don't see why we couldn't do it. We typically do that through the DA process.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we don't normally do it at a business plan level, but we would definitely can include that.
Yeah.
More the merrier, huh?
Okay, well,
Fantastic.
there's no more questions. We will move on.
Fantastic.
I'll go back to item 4, which is public question time. Do we have any public questions? Petitions, deputations and presentations are done. Declarations of interest. Item 6, do we have any declarations of interest? Not at this stage. If you do, just get it to us before next week. 7 is confirmation of minutes. 8, announcements presiding. 9, corporate and commercial reports. 9.1 is the statements period ended 31st of January 25 for the office recommendation on page 8, and that is that we received the financial statements for the 31st of January 2025. Anyone got any questions on our financials? No?
I think I did, but I've got to find it.
Shall I find it?
Give me a minute. Sorry.
Youth Foundation.
Yes. On the debts section, which yes, on page 12, L136, the IF Foundation haven't actually been functioning up here for quite some time.
So IWF.
David and Ariana, the IF Foundation. So I'm just wondering about this bill. Is it become this because of interest or?
In terms of the value outstanding, I need to ask the finance manager for the details. I'm not across the what's led to the 5,000, but what I can say to you is this has been sitting on our debtors list for a long time. Our finance manager, who has just joined us, is literally going through each and every one of these outstanding debtors. Looked at the recovery process and also having a really healthy, fresh look at whether or not we've got any chance of recovering some of these outstanding figures. I think she's at the stage now where she feels some of them have sat there for so long because they're not recoverable. And what I've asked her to do and what the director's asked her to do is to summarise that history and bring that back to council with enough detail that we can go through it and you can make a decision as to whether to write it off once and for all and actually tidy up our books. But there needs to be we need to actually have all of that stepped out and made really clear to you as to what we've tried, what we haven't tried, how we got there, and then you can decide whether or not you're happy to write it off.
And the other one was like Virgin Australia. So it's kind of quite, it's misleading a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you think it is Virgin, they're still flying up here, even though it was the previous organisation.
Correct. Yeah. So once again, I think I can foreshadow for you, and the director, the manager has actually raised this, that she's preparing a report which will come possibly to the April meeting. Yep, the April meeting, to kind of work through all of these in one motion so that you can make your decisions. Okay.
Okay.
That was 11.
Oh.
11.4.
What we might do if we
Thanks for
finished
that.
on 9.1, I've been advised that we have someone in the room who's interested in 11.4.
Yeah. Sorry, we didn't realise. Otherwise, we would have brought it forward. Thank you. Yeah, it's really exciting talking about debtor listing.
Are we going to go back though to the list of accounts?
Yeah.
Sorry, councillor. Yeah, we just realised we've got a guest who's waiting patiently, so we'll let back to you.
Okay, so we'll bring forward 11.4, which is the scheme amendment number 62 to the City Karratha Local Planning Scheme for rezoning of lot 23 Murphin Way and lot 224 Galbraith Road in Peggs Creek from residential R20 to residential R40, with the officer's recommendation on page 68. That, as you can all, this has been a long day, so as you can all see and read there for yourself, there is the recommendation. Does anyone have any questions in regards to the proposed zoning?
So through the meeting,
Actually, yeah. Can we? We were going to do this, weren't we? Is this on my list? It's not.
No, we didn't have a presentation prepared, but I think you can see there that officers are supportive of increasing the density. We obviously went out to public for public comment. I think you can see there, people do have a natural nervousness about infill and what that might mean in terms of community amenity and whether or not that's going to result in disruption. Our view is that one doesn't necessarily lead to the other. And in fact, there's also an argument for the contrary, which is that when you start to create nice levels of density, you actually can, if you do it right, you can create a really vibrant community space. So our view is that from probably speaking for you, but feel free to jump in. But I think we feel that it's actually a really good planning outcome and a really good community outcome and results in a better use of land in this area. Would you have anything I've misspoken on or that you would add to?
No, I through the chair, I think the only thing I'd add is going from R20 to R40 is hardly high density.
Yeah, true.
It's enabling a few extra houses to be constructed on land in an arrangement that we think is suitable. So we are always going to encourage where we can have large lots amalgamated to achieve a better outcome that occur. And as we've spoken to already this evening, we desperately need houses in this location. So if we can get a few extra on this lot and achieve good outcome, officers would recommend that council support what is
would you say, Director, that, you know, as it looks to the future of Karratha, right, and we're sort of landlocked a bit, as in there's a lot of unallocated Crown land around Karratha, that the future of Karratha is that we need to continually look at density in our codes to increase our footprint of buildings on land, because at one stage in the future we're going to be locked out, right, because we've got state government land. So that's one of our risks in the future, is that if we don't do these things, that we're not going to have the land available to grow.
Through the chair, I think any growing urban area, it's worthy of consideration of achieving appropriate codings. I think we're in a fortunate position in Karratha that people aren't scared of height as well, which is nice, and you don't get that in other regional centres necessarily. It's all about food and balance. So as long as we can provide good options for the community, I think that there's always going to be people out there who don't have an extra caravan or car or boat and don't want to mow the lawn on the weekends, and they'll be able to get along with this kind of product very well.
And where is the registered Aboriginal heritage site around there?
I'd have to take that on notice. I can't recall. I'm a little bit weary.
Yeah.
So that was quite. I was just quite interested to think, well, just there somewhere there's a recorded registered Aboriginal heritage site.
Happy to take it on notice.
Fortunately for the developer, it's outside of the land.
I've got a feeling there are a couple of overlays there of Aboriginal heritage in through that area, but yeah, it's
I often have heritage sites that have dithered boundaries as well.
Yeah.
So they have quite a large site overlay, but they don't necessarily tell us exactly where the site is because it's sacred and they don't necessarily want everybody to know. But I don't know if that's the case here. I'm happy to take it and back to you.
Yeah.
Would like to know. Okay. Has anyone got any other questions?
Can I just say something? Just based, thanks for moving my little piece of business up. Just based on the comments that have been made, is R40 dense enough?
Through the chair, I think let's get this one done first. Happy to engage in discussions later on if you'd like, but obviously it's worth remembering as well that we don't make the final decision. So council will support or otherwise, and then the Minister for Planning makes the decision at the end.
Yep.
But happy to engage in
Well,
discussions.
you do seem very positive, and obviously the future is quite tight, and it's better to do this.
giving you a few things to think about, haven't we? But we support, at the moment, the recommendation is to support your proposal.
Really, question on that. What would be the housing amount difference between R40 and R60? Next one.
I'd have to pull out the R codes and double check, but I'm happy to get back to you.
Yeah, it'd be good to know.
Okay. There are no further questions. We will move back to 9.2, the list of accounts. You are free to leave if you want.
Oh, yeah,
I've learned heaps tonight.
Oh, I stayed, yeah. Rocky Road and that beers.
I missed the Rocky Road.
I missed both.
I'm not a beer, but he did get in Rocky Road.
Yes.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
There is an election in October too.
All right, 9.2 is our list of accounts from the 1st of January to the end of January 25, with the office's recommendation on page 17. As we receive the list of payments totalling 10.9 million. It seems to be a round about $11 million number every month, with the payments being made up on the list 1 to 7. Does anyone have any questions on our lists of accounts?
I do. There's a numerous. Look, one is 14918 reimbursements on SSS reimbursements.
I had the same question. So Furlong. I thought, are these all CCTV?
No, but they're not CCTV because that's different. Sorry.
14918.
So to continue on with Councillor Furlong's question, there are
that's
CCTV reimbursements in there that are clearly marked CCTV, but then there's reimbursements that say SS2 or something. Now you sort of gather 1 + 1 might be CTCTV, but it's not explicitly said that it's
Okay, and some are 500, some are 350.
Okay, we'll take that on notice.
And then the security, subsidies.
Security
So
subsidies.
some can be lighting, some can be, what do you call it, video cameras. So
Yeah.
it's up to a certain amount.
It's a security system.
It's not expressly. It's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't say it.
But they does say CCTV.
Again,
There's
yeah.
two, but there's a, oh yeah. Thank you.
So councillor, 141. Oh, right.
No. 14918 is just one.
14918 is.
But there's
we're gonna use
numerous.
that. Yeah, we're going to use that as our example, and we'll come back.
And you got to remember, this is a public document, so we need to be explicit in what these transactions
Absolutely.
are for.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on list of accounts?
Yeah, I've got page 3, just, if you want the number, it's 087386, which is Oz Solar, but it's community event Christmas decoration, $32,000. So I'm just wondering, is this something that we recycle? Do we get a heap of new decorations this year? I just always look at our Christmas costs and they're rather large. They look fantastic, but I'm just wondering if there's something that we are recycling, or is that like every year it's going to cost us that amount?
And that's through.
And not in any other towns, apparently. I don't know.
That I can double check it, but I'm pretty sure that is for the installation of lighting down
It's the cost of labour.
South Avenue.
It's not decorations, it's cost of labour.
Yeah.
Got some more, Jay?
I was double checking those. I think that was it. That was the main ones left.
You get above the bar, they're out in July as well.
Right?
You get above the bar, they're out in July as well.
No, that was it. Thank you.
That's it. Anyone else? No. Okay. We'll rock along to 9.3, which is our investments for a period ended 31st January 25. Doctor's recommendation on page 20, and is that we received the investment report for the end of January. Any questions on our reserve term deposits, municipal term deposits, investments?
All going good.
No,
It's a no, yeah.
You're nice.
Right, 9.4. Joe, I get it. All right. Quarter 2 budget review for 24-25. The officer recommendation, page 27. And that is that we vote to the majority, accept the second quarter budget review results. And with a proposed surplus of $40,957 at the end of June 2025. Does anyone have any questions around our budget review?
The only question I have is the write-off of bad debts of the 720,000 that's in there. Is that potentially going to align to the paper we're going to be receiving next month? That's on. Are you across that detail?
Yes.
Yep.
To the chair, no, it doesn't include that because obviously this is a budget for a point in time, and then that amendment's coming after that.
Okay. So the additional refer to then.
So it refers to the amendments that were made at the Q2 budget review timeline. And then since then, the CFO has picked up the additional outstanding debts, which is in the 9.1 of the agenda, as to bring that back on the table, as the CEO highlighted earlier, with the intent to come to April to seek council approval to write off those debts. So we can't include that until council approves, if that makes sense, which will happen in the April meeting.
We approve the value of the write-off in the budget review.
So you'll approve the value of those write-offs in April as part of that at 4CM agenda paper.
Yeah.
So if this write-off doesn't include that amount, if this write-off's at this point in time,
Yeah.
and that hasn't occurred in a way.
So what would be the $720,000?
Could I just suggest, councillor, that in the meeting notes we provide you with a breakdown of that write-off figure, because it is significant.
Thank you.
And it's worth you understanding that.
Okay. Any other questions? Budget review? No? Fine. 9.5, as we go to the KPIs for the Q2. The officer's recommendation on page 32 is that we receive the Q2 performance and approve adjustments to the following KPIs, and that's withdrawing to a 1.1V to maintain the value of economic, anyway, the written there, not a good measure, no outcomes achieved. And then amend the quarterly target to maintain the value, take your business online grants that previously from 100,000 to 25,000. Any questions? KPIs?
Yep, I do. Sorry. I like that that's staying at 100,000 but going to the quarterly reviews, which is 25, which is great. But in 3.A.2.2.B, identify the number of projects implemented from the environmental sustainability strategy. In the comments, and I could be wrong, it says that there's 4 sustainability projects being delivered by City Growth, but in the actual there's 0. So I'm just wondering if they're above target or under target, because they're in that measure's not sitting in a. Oh, sorry, page 38. That's helpful. Thanks. I was just trying to understand that component, because it sort of says that there's the carbon accounting, environmental sustainability strategy, and solar feasibility study, and the community energy and water audit kits, but then it's 0.
So they haven't been finalised. So they're
right. So they're in progress,
they haven't been.
And then that's why your target's in there,
0.
not.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Any other questions? Ready?
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, bigger.
Okay, moving on to 10, community experience reports. 10.1 is to advertise the draft strategic community plan, 25 to 35. The officer's recommendation on page 43, and as we advertise the draft 25 to 35 SCP for public comment for a 4-week period, and request administration to present a summary of public comment back to council in June, along with the draft council plan. Are there any questions on our SCP?
I've got a couple. Back in page 5, I think it is, where we acknowledge country. I've had a recent conversation with someone about emerging not been a word that some of our language groups don't recognise. Is it something that we could look into if our particular language group want to include the emerging?
Through the chair, we actually put this forward to a meeting this morning with elders, and we had a really good conversation around it. So we'll probably see that reviewed in a future version. But just to answer your question, there didn't seem to be any concern with the word emerging.
It's nice. So from my previous council, where that conversation's popped up is, I think it's in Reconciliation Australia, have recommended dropping emerging as a standard. So you're starting to see a mixture of language popping up. So so one of the I suppose advisory bodies has recommended dropping emerging as a better standard, but it's up to us to decide then what we want to do. But that's why you're probably hearing it, is there's now a mixture of language coming through.
And is it a good time to talk about a couple of typos?
Oh yes.
On page 6, in the economy, there's a couple of extra N's. With a long history of exporting iron ore, liquefied gas, natural gas, and salt, and ammonium product. There's an extra "and" there, and again, manufacturing and aviation and drone. I don't know if aviation and drone technology is supposed to be one.
I think aviation is different to drone technology.
So
yeah,
just
I think it is two separate.
Some of the ands, and on the right side, those reference marks need to be subscript.
Sorry, are we looking
on the page 6?
Page 6.
Column 2.
Yeah.
You've got a big 2.
So they superscript those.
There'll be a different version of this updated for the council meeting next week, which will be graphically designed, that will go out to community. So we'll make sure that we capture those, or ensure that those changes have been carried through to the.
So is it?
Any other questions on our strategic community plan?
I had one on page 14. Item or SPC goals. It says item 2, the community is welcoming, connected, vibrant, healthy and safe. And then I've got state government priorities. And then I just thought, shouldn't there be a dot next to the transport, roads and ports? Is that connectivity as well? Is that from under that? We're ticking that box.
Oh, yeah. 'Cause it was, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Through the chair, connection actually sits, when we talk about transport connection, sits within goal 6. The connected under goal 2 relates to connection of people.
Yeah, but I thought about that
not
too.
either,
So I thought about the wording connection, but isn't that also being able to connect with people, like to physically connect? So I thought about that too. I thought about the wording, but I don't know. Just thought.
And then there's not a dot in 6 anymore.
Yeah.
It's only in 4. So maybe add it in somewhere.
This is our function.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. The actual engagement plan talks about one-on-one meetings, but only with programs stakeholder groups. Sorry, Jill. The community engagement plan talks about one-on-one meetings, but then the description just says Roburn stakeholder groups. Are we meeting with other towns, other stakeholders?
Certainly the seniors in Dampier who would really appreciate one-on-ones as well.
Sorry, you're referring to the draft engaging, or you're referring to?
Yeah, so this engagement plan that is in the actual agenda item, not in the plan.
Yes.
It just mentions Roburn.
Yeah, we can definitely extend that out. In addition to that, we will be setting up some stalls, various markets and other community events and walking community through the draft as well. So we'll make sure we expand that out to seniors and other stakeholders. I think with all our engagement, we were open to doing one-on-ones or different types of opportunities for people to engage with us.
Yeah. I should just to provide council with some feedback. We've obviously done to get here. It's been like 12 months of lots of different touch points, lots of different conversations, lots of different things. This is kind of the first time we've assembled it into one piece. And the power of this is that now we're actually synthesizing and we're presenting back. This is what we think we heard. How did we go? We already know Emma had a really fantastic conversation with elders this morning. In fact, they're already kind of going, like this bit, not so sure about that bit. So all I would just counsel everyone on is maintain open to it still being adapted. I think we've come a long way, but there's going to be some nuances, and particularly where we're talking to cultural groups, how does this actually resonate? How does this read? How does it get interpreted? That's kind of the piece that sort of came through in today's meeting. So we haven't landed it yet, is what I'm saying to you, but this is a really important part of going, okay, this is what we came up with. Now tell us, where did we get it right? Where did we get it wrong? I think there might be some further iterations.
Just one more from me. The old SCP had a really great table at the back that's used by a lot of not-for-profits when they were referencing our objectives in our grant applications.
Yeah.
This is a lot longer to, just to be able to find that, oh, yeah, that fits. So I don't know if there's a way that we can just, I don't know, maybe it's provided in the grant information or something, but just one page that is the objectives, either in that document or attached, that is really helpful.
Excellent. Anyone else? All right, we'll move forward to 11. 11.1 is our major event sponsorship and attraction program. We've proposed sponsorship for Our Town television episode with the officer's recommendation on page 49 that we approve sponsorship to Visage Productions as follows: $45,000 to a TV episode on Karratha. Now, this is on my agenda, CEO, is something that
there was a presentation.
Yes.
Hi, through the chair, I'm happy just to short circuit.
Short circuit, let's do it.
Thank you.
Long and the short of it is we think this is excellent value in terms of the ability to reach a very broad audience. There's some good data provided by the team in the report to do with how many TV ads you'd have to get similar coverage. And it would come out as a heck of a lot more than the 45,000 that's been requested. We think it's a really nice sponsorship opportunity at a relatively low cost considering the coverage that we would receive.
How was the stream last time? By what platform? Yeah, thank you. I guess I'll you out.
Yes,
Yeah, that's okay.
It was on commercial television. You might have to refer through to the manager for City Growth.
Through the chair, it was on 7 plus.
Oh, okay. And was that the same this time, 7 plus?
And it's still relevant because I actually watched it.
We watched it later.
Yeah.
There you go.
And a point to make about that last episode is there was zero mention of Dampier at all. On that episode, none.
Yeah,
It was like it didn't even exist.
Yeah, there's a whole interview with
Everyone, but yeah, but nothing. It's not that Dampier.
So I don't understand how you didn't get it.
I don't know either. But
Manager, make sure Dan.
Yes, please.
One of our instructions was to focus on all of our town centres.
What did he put?
Yeah, that was my question.
Creative
Yeah.
control.
How do we, or who chooses and how do we choose what's captured and like what businesses, what, like
Community
that's going to be an interesting part. And does that come back to council? That's my question.
Well, through the chair, no, not typically. That would be done through contract conditions. So, happy to take advice. We've obviously addressed the 5 towns, but if there's particular aspects of the community that you think we should address, that would be the case. But generally, the contract will be administered by the officers.
So, but to me, it's like, what are we trying to achieve? Like, what's the angle? Make people come and live here? What are we trying to achieve? All of the above.
Do we have access to any of the Karratha is calling survey data that we did that talks about external people's perception of Karratha? Because I feel like that's a nice way. Like, I know I get feedback from people that I speak to and they're like, oh, my wife would never move up here. There's not enough coffee shops. So if there's that kind of data that was in that Karratha is calling survey and, feedback and all those bits that we did, maybe that can help kind of mould what we need, who we would encourage them to talk to.
Go back and have a look.
And there is, because I don't know if you recall that we had to change our tack with Karratha calling because we got that information.
Yes.
They said, we're not promoting that anymore. We're going to
that.
promote this because the data is telling us that.
My personal view, and having done some, large scale branding work at a West Australian level with Synergy, when I looked at the Karratha calling stuff, I think we did really well at the early stages in terms of getting cut through because it was quite targeted and very clear as to the audience and messaging. And then as we started to divert from that and get more disbursement of messaging, the actual cut through reduced. So my advice has been, and probably what I'd be suggesting in our contracts to the team when we look at this, is focus on destination. Just focus on amenity and tourism, right? If you've kind of got that lens of this is a great place to visit, the rest will fall out of it. People will draw out of that. This is a nice place to live and But, if you sell Broome as a nice place to go and visit, people also kind of extrapolate from that. Maybe I'd like to live there. Maybe I'd like to form a business there. But you sort of got to be quite single-minded. So, yeah.
Sarah, yes. Sarah has a question. Where can I hear Sarah? Sarah?
Thanks, team. This is something that I've thought of before I was elected, but when Karratha was calling was around. We have some incredible advocates already out in the community, advocating for our region for free. Is there a way that we can try and link these up? I don't know whether we could put it in a contract, but even by courtesy, because it will be doing us all a service. But people like They have social media outlets like My Pilbara. Equestrian Life already has 200,000 people following them from all over the world. My Pilbara Drone Ranger. There's people out there already capturing incredible content that are huge advocates, and I think it would be really great to support our local people doing it on a daily basis, and just a brilliant capture of local content as well.
My advice, so what you're, if I'm understanding you, Councillor, is you're identifying other influencers and content, effectively tourism advocates that we could tap into. I think what we're actually doing is starting to forecast some of the things that we can do in our destination strategy work. That's not to say that we can't pick up some of those and point them in the direction of the TV producers, but they've probably got a very clear product that's in their mind, that they know is what their audiences want to see. And there'll probably be some opportunities to influence that, but I think there's going to be other opportunities for us to look at destination management and tourism strategies as we form our destination tactics.
If I could be cheeky and say that these people are quite broad in showing, the beauty of the region, but I understand that it could be better placed in a different strategy.
Through the chair, happy to take suggestions if you think there's people out there in particular that we should be pointing to producers to. Just let myself
I would say that still needs some local context.
Thanks, Lee. I'll send you a list.
All right. Any other questions on our town? Okay. 11.2 is the Wellgoo Apartments development project. The officer's recommendation on page 54, and that is that we accept the feasibility report done on the 30th of October 2024 and not proceed with the city's Wellgoo Apartments development, including the acquisition of lots 7020 and part lots 7018. And we support development of lots 7020 and 7018 through advocacy to the state government, federal government and industry, and identification of private developers with an interest in construction of apartments or mixed-use development on the site, i.e. apartments or hotel. That's not there, but are there any questions?
Just comment, really good report. I think it was well put together. We've been on this journey now for 3-4 years. I think it's sort of passing it. Is that the word we're sort of doing? We're still interested, but let's leave there. There's all the information's available. Someone's interested, come and talk to us. But I think we've done it to death to try and get money to make it work. I think we started off at something like 60 million, I think, or 100 million. Then it got too big. So good report. I think that line there. Let's see if someone else wants to come along. But I think we sort of realise the expression not flogging to death horse, we're not going to get it up. So time and effort, money we could do into other projects that ease that, but doors always open. It's a good report that you can easily refresh and easily to get some figures out of it to utilise it for that. So
is your question? Is the question that are we parking it?
Yes, my question is, are we parking it?
Through the chair, the recommendation is that we step back. There's no reason why council couldn't revisit a development on the site at some point in the future, but it's effectively saying we're no longer participating in the development of the site beyond supporting others who might wish to.
I think that's fair too.
And it was an important document because you asked us to do some work, and we need to come back and say to you, we don't think we should continue. So it's really closing the loop with council to ensure that you're comfortable with that approach.
Could be the new water park location.
And council's aware of this, but it is not our land. We were trying to facilitate it. It's Development WA land. We're aware through our work that there are potentially private parties who might be interested. So we're kind of going, let's get Development WA and private parties to see what they can do.
My question then is, does it matter that it's not our land?
I think
we were always looking at ways that we could activate it, that we could create something that's worthwhile for the city. If it's not our land, that we can go and buy the land, that's always a possibility. But I think what we're really saying is that the project as we originally
Intended.
is we don't think it's feasible to put any more effort or money into it.
My stomach's rumbling.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Is here.
That's okay. I can hear it louder than my voice. Right, 11.E. Oh, so any other further questions on Wildwood?
Oh, good.
11.3 is the development application for a proposed change of use from restaurant and takeaway food outlet to small bar and takeaway food outlet for Burger Mama. With the officer's recommendation on page, it's a big one, I understand this stuff, 60 and 61. Are there any questions on this proposed? Actually, Director, would you like to go through this a little bit, particularly in the sense of it's not in our scheme, so the use not listed and
Happy to go through it. Probably the use not listed is a side issue in the sense that at the moment our scheme text doesn't allow officers to determine a use not listed. It's something that we're looking to rectify in an omnibus amendment, which will come to you in April. We have to deal with it that way technically because the scheme only allows us to bring it to council. But the issue obviously is that they're proposing to change the way that they function within that tenancy. So they've obviously got a restaurant licence currently. They've been operating as Burger Mama for a number of years. They're looking to go to a small bar licence rather than a restaurant licence to enable them to have events where they don't have to serve food when they serve alcohol. They've had a couple of events already under an events permit, so they've dealt with that separately, but they're looking to formalise that moving forward. So officers are reasonably comfortable that subject to compliance with their noise management plan and all of the actions that are identified within the acoustic report, that it can be managed. We've tried to tie the conditions up as tightly as we can to make it easier for us to deal with moving forward if there's any issues. But
can I get reminded to put in a declaration of interest? Just so I don't know what I do it for. I supply alcohol to this business, so I will have a financial interest to step out of the room.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Just I suppose a general question.
In actual fact, should I step out now? If that's the case.
Possibly, yeah. Well, if we've got another question, I'd suggest you leave the room.
Yeah.
Given that it's just the penny has just dropped.
The penny has just dropped.
It's always a good thing to remove yourself. Simon? Yeah, thank you. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Oh, exactly.
Sorry, I think, can I ask the committee to take over the conversation? Sure. You can do it from your.
Can I just say yeah?
You can do it from your chair.
Okay.
Sorry.
He only remembered he had an interest because he wanted food, you realise.
Okay, well, I'll be really quick.
We need to bring out the place while we can we organise that stuff? Can we bring some food and keep people from dropping off the purchase?
Can I just say before you get that, Alistair, I was online last meeting when there was still food at the table from a visibility perspective. It was terrible.
It looked
I would
messy.
recommend it.
Maybe suspend the.
We could
just keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. Let's keep
Harry, have any questions on this item? Councillors? Yes, please go ahead.
Thanks for the feedback.
Just one. So obviously she's got to make amendments to her establishment to be classed, to be able to have a small bar. My thought is, why isn't she going for a full license? Or if the small bar thing goes well, I know she can only have 2 events per month, isn't it? So I just wanted to know, she's already doing the amendments to the building. What's the future proofing for her in the future if things go well and she wants to make it more permanent? Can she apply for something else? To apply for a new DA.
Yeah, she has to probably do. Thank you. Through the chair at officer level, I don't think we would have supported a change of licence across to a tavern without it being tested.
Are there any other questions, councillors? No? Okay, in that case, shall we go and get the mayor?
Yes, please.
I'll go get the mayor.
Get them out of the kitchen.
Get him out of the kitchen.
That was good. I was going to respond to my son. Dad, when are you coming home?
We thought you were just getting his first cup of pizza.
We're up to number 11.4.
Right, 11.5.
11.5, so we've done 11.5. Over to 11.5.
1.5. Okay. Doing the local planning policy, DPO 7 for residential development requirements, and DPO 11 for transportable buildings in residential areas. With the officer's recommendation on page 75, that we resolve to proceed with local planning policy DPO 7 residential development requirements included in attachment 3 for final adoption. Are there any questions to this?
Councillors, this is one of those really exciting exciting town planning policy type items, which
Precedent set by a court.
correct, absolutely. No, it's important. This is part of our governance framework and getting it right. And I think, as I understand it, it's about bringing it into alignment with state government planning framework. Am I going? Would you like me to step in? Yeah. Not great. I thought I'd have a go at it.
You're really going along the run.
Yeah. I was about saying we're knocking one off as well. So continue on.
This is not the first time you've seen this item. You will be familiar that planning items often come back to you more than once, and that's to do with the regulatory framework that we work within. So it's a statutory process that we need to follow. It's been advertised. We've received comments from one submitter. We've addressed those. It's been through the West Australian Planning Commission Statutory Planning Committee, and they're satisfied with the way that we've addressed the submissions. And now we're looking for council support to update the policy. The long and the short of it is this will make it easier for the planners and for people in the community to get their minor variations to their residential development, such as sheds and outbuildings, etc. There are elements of aligning it with the regulations, but it's trying to pull out in large part some of the very small applications or small variations that really don't need to come through the CDA and make everyone's life easier if they don't have to go through that process.
Director, are you suggesting we're cutting red tape?
I'm suggesting we have to go through red tape in order to do it. Yes.
Any further questions?
Stunned silence.
Yeah, that's tired silence. Everyone's running.
All right, 11 points. Oh, we done that? 12.1. 12.1. Panel application for design services. The officer's recommendation on page 89, we agree to invite applications to join a panel for design services for 3 years and agree the panel for design services include the appointment of 3 to 7 contractors, the maximum value of any one-off project capped at $1 million ex GST. With the table of criteria there listed. Are there any questions on us going for a panel for design services?
I suppose one of the questions I had is it's a 3-year, and I like the idea of it, but we have businesses that come and go all the time. Is there still going to be opportunities for people to join in during the 3-year period?
No, this is actually effectively appointing, going through a selection process and appointing contractors to be on a panel for the 3 years. So if someone leaves town, then they drop off that panel.
But then that doesn't give us any more questions. So if someone isn't meeting what they need to do on this panel, and we remove them,
Can we add?
Can we add at any stage? I just think it's kind of biting off our nose to spite our face. Yes, it'll make life easier.
Well, it's not dissimilar to, I don't know, yeah, we go out fencing, yeah, but we go out and actually do a selection process, and then we identify a group of companies that can provide those services, and we do that regularly.
Yeah.
If at any stage we felt like the situation had changed and we're no longer able to use that panel for the service that it provides, and we would have to go back out to market and do another process, right? But what we're trying to do, what I like about this is it's about going, let's go through a process, go through a selection process, identify those organisations that are really skilled at this, that are in the market, lock them in, and then they become our design panel and help us to actually make smart review decisions more quickly and to actually go through that stage with the right people in the room, spec up the design, get it sorted, speed it up.
And I understand all that, but I just think when we have new businesses coming here all the time,
yeah,
we've got to say to them, you've got to wait now till 3 years before you can actually get involved with city work in that particular area.
Yeah, that's effectively what we're saying, is this is at a point in time and it's about being efficient for 3 years, doing a process once. If, for example, you felt 3 years was too long, I would, it would be a good question for us to ask the director when he's back about how does he feel that the length of 3 years is appropriate. That could be something council could consider next week, and whether or not he feels that that's actually, constraining us from getting good people in the next 2 years. I'm comfortable with the 3 years. I don't think we're necessarily, I don't think we're minimising outcomes from the community's perspective.
To the chair, one of the criteria is relevant experience, 30%. So you would think if there was a new player in town, they wouldn't meet that criteria until they have a few years of runs on the board, by which time you're going off the market again.
Yeah. I've just got I suppose, a bit of a clarification. Do any other councils use this method?
I'll take that question on notice. I believe so, but we can give you some specifics around that.
Through the chair, I can confirm that at Busselton we did similar panel tenders for this kind of activity.
Okay, and the other question is, I'm a little bit confused, but so I suppose it's also said in the document they get no guarantee that those contractors will get the work, even though they're sitting on the panel. Is that correct? So would the people sitting on the panel get a sitting fee?
Let's take that question on notice. Yeah,
because I'm thinking, it's all about us, but these people are giving their time and effort. If they're not actually physically getting any work out of us, it's not no guarantee for the people on the panel to get the work. Then, what are they getting out of it? That's what I'm concerned. Who's going to put their hand up? Because there's a lot of stuff that you're chasing out of these people, and it'd be pretty highly skilled. And their time's obviously at the, they want to keep.
Yeah, I'm off the top of my head and through the chair, I can't answer the question about a sitting fee, but by being pre-qualified, they're actually getting the opportunity to be at the front of the process for any likely work. So I think that the participants are more likely to see they're in a favourable position. But let's take a couple of these items on notice, these questions on notice, and we'll check with the team who are pulling this proposal together and make sure that you've got some clarity there.
Okay.
Good questions.
Yeah, very good questions.
Any other questions? Right. 12.2 is minor works, fire protection systems and equipment. Request to call for tenders with the officer's recommendation on page 96. As we agreed to invite tenders for minor works, fire protection systems for 3 years with a 2 by 1 year extension options. And exercise will solve the question of the city. Any questions on our
going out to
tender for fire protection systems? Sorry, I'm fading. Pretty straightforward. Go to tender and see what comes in.
Yeah.
Okay, and same again, minor works, 12.3, reticulation services, request to call for tenders. Same again for 3 years with a 2 by 1 year extension. Excisable solids. Any questions on us going over tender for reticulation?
Just can they break it into eastern and western corridors in the tenders? Because obviously we heard some of the stuff from Councillor Nunn that some things weren't being attended to out the eastern corridor.
We'll take that question on notice about whether it can be broken into zones as opposed to a whole of city. Yep. Okay. There are other tenders where we've broken it into zones, so we can consider that.
Any other questions? 12.4 is request for tenders for Karratha and Dampier cleaning services for the same 3 years with 2 by 1 year extension options. Any questions on us going up to tender for cleaning for our premium facilities and administration facilities?
Mine would be, is there any review of what's included in those contracts when they're tendering to include sustainability, so recycling bins and different things like that. So I don't think we're leading the way in the city with regards to that sort of stuff. So if bins are included in this contract, if we're actually looking at what's going into that tender and what's being provided in our own facilities.
So let's ask the team to provide some feedback on sustainability of waste management
within that tender,
and see if that's something that they have considered or if that's something they can consider in the scope. That's a really good suggestion.
That's one, Councillor.
Yeah, nice one.
Hey, put it in the cleaning contract, she reckons.
Getting the bins unless it's in there.
Any other questions?
Late night meetings more often.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Any other questions around cleaning? All right, 13 is the CEO reports with 13.1 items of information only. Has anyone got any questions on any of our?
Just noting security subsidy scheme properties up to 17%, so 27, which could answer our financial question of the rebates, because that's 27 of them. Might have just joined up the dots. Yeah.
So no advertising.
And the base was down 18%. Is there any particular reason you reckon?
No, through the chair, it's seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment. But what we do know, there has been a lot of business going on out in that area lately.
I've just had one. Is it the disability one that comes under? That's the same.
Yes, disability access and inclusion plan update is 13.1.
Yeah, I just couldn't see anything in there about the access to the adult change room facility, that 24-hour toilet. I know
Yes.
That's not on
In
that
town.
list. Yeah, can we add it to the list, or that was a high priority maybe a year or something ago? It's just that's not really good if people are chasing those facilities, it's still not available to them a year later. I'd like to see some action on that item.
Through the chair, so what I'm hearing, you would like that included as an additional action to the disability access and inclusion plan?
Yeah, it just seems to have disappeared off the radar and was mentioned quite a few times by members of the public.
So what we'll do is we'll take that as a separate piece of work. This is an update on the existing plan against the existing actions. But let's take that one. Sorry.
Through the chair, apologies. We can just do that as a separate report to include that.
Let's we'll actually have a look at that separately and bring that back.
I thought there was already some stuff in motion that you had going with that, but there's nothing being confirmed. So
yeah, need to take that one on notice if that's okay. Yeah.
I think NJ did speak about it at our planning day.
Sorry? Yeah, we just spoke at planning day. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks for picking that up.
Any other questions? Sand Central plan, jetties getting built.
I do have one on the Point Southampton interim plan. I noted in the minutes that there was some unhappy campers that council having to extend. Just wondering what our internal process is to let the rest of us know in case one of us could have attended. I don't recall seeing we need some help.
Through the chair, once we receive the apology, we do send that through for it to be distributed out to council. So I'll to follow that one up to see what's happened on that occasion.
Yeah. I don't think anyone could recall being asked.
Thanks for that feedback. We'll check whether that's been a process or communication breakdown at our end first, and we'll come back to you. Certainly, we should be trying to keep you informed if there's a gap that someone has the opportunity to fill in.
Okay. Any other questions on 13? No. Okay. We move to 14, which is motions of which previous notice has been given, of which we have one. Did everyone get this? Right. This is submitted by Councillor Johansson with the recommendation in front of us. Should we give this opportunity to Councillor Johansson to explain his motion? Councillor Johansson, would you like to run us through the thoughts?
It was an actual motion that a resident contacted me about. He wanted to present at the annual electors meeting. She didn't feel even safe enough to present this at the annual electors meeting due to the blowback on her within her street area. That sort of shows sort of the level of, when I look at our strategic community plan and you got words like vibrant, healthy and safe, you've got people in the community that they don't feel, healthy and they don't feel safe living next door to some of these houses. That this isn't a recent issue. This issue has gone on for years. It's not new. It's ongoing and people don't want to deal with it.
Yep. Anyone got any questions on this notice motion?
I have a couple. In relation to point 2, given the new cabinet that has been released, is there potential to add other ministers? I'm thinking Minister for Housing, Minister for Community Services. We're going to send a letter, add some extra ministers and try and get them engaged in our community. Second dot point for item 4, I'm just concerned that that's a little bit like, how would we hold state government accountable? Is there potentially a better way that we could word that so that we have an action that comes out of it? And I would like to consider, and something we talked about a lot, is adding a 4th dot point that said that we reinstate the Safe Communities Partnership Network meetings. So I do feel previously that these matters were addressed directly by those stakeholders. Which brings me to my last question is, given that this has been presented today but doesn't really get assessed until next week, if we were going to make any changes, can we do that before the next council meeting, or does it now need to be addressed as an amendment?
No, you can. It's not
my changes to make. I'm just asking.
No, but this is where we should be making the changes, like the way the annual electors meeting work, and that it was discussed and changes made on the spot. I think that should happen in the briefing meetings.
That's fine.
And I 100% agree, Brenton. So so this is an opportunity to have that conversation as a council and decide how you want to.
I like the bits you said. That makes sense.
And just my thoughts, I suppose, you're requesting the CEO prepare the formal reports of the problematics of housing, but can the CEO contact the Department of Communities to maybe help, and maybe the police to identify that? Because I don't know if we've got our hand on.
I think it has to be combined effort.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I mean, can we make it broad to make sure?
I also make comment on this. What raised as someone who has actually dealt with situations with these houses.
So we're not actually.
But this is that one Tim raised about questions being related to the motion.
I wanted to suggest that you change that.
To public briefing, so did I, but I still didn't
But
put
then
my
we
hand
didn't
up.
really get a chance afterwards to say, can we reassess it for public briefings?
Yeah.
That was going to be
Yes,
suggested.
Okay.
Because the
In
issue
terms of
with-
that motion.
Yeah, those questions Because it was like the BMX thing, you know, they did all the presentations and the deputations right at the start of the thing, and then they weren't even relevant to by the time we got to the BMX motion.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things should be at that motion point.
Which
It's just hard to then inject all the time, like if you
Yeah.
have plenty of people injecting. So I think it still needs to be that you put your hand up.
So what I'd be suggesting, given this is a question session, and I mean, you absolutely can work it together, but I think it is a really good opportunity for you to provide sort of some of your initial thoughts back to Brenton as to what you think could be done to strengthen it in your view as a council. This is a, you know, and then Councillor Johansson, when you're ready, you can put it forward as a formal notice of motion, which isn't to say that you can't also take amendments or make amendments in the course of the conversation at the meeting as well, right? So yeah, so I think so. What I'm hearing in terms of suggestions is that the request the CEO to prepare a report, and I'm hearing that there's potentially opportunities to work with a multi-agency approach. And that can be done at the CEO level, that can be done at an advocacy level and a ministerial level, and that can also be done at a community safety action group type level as well, right? So we're talking about a multi-faceted approach.
And what does everyone think about Kelly's approach around taking out holding state government accountable for ongoing inaction and putting in an extra dot point to re-establish the Safer Communities Partnership meeting?
Safer communities make sense, and the holding the state to accountable, they're not going to listen anyway.
Well, I get it, but I just, as a statement, it really doesn't give administration any ability to actually move forward on that.
But my continue to advocate.
Councillor Roots, do you have a question? Sarah?
Sorry, I was just trying to mute myself. I'm loving the robust discussion that's happening, and I feel like it's evolving in the way that it should be. I just wanted to ask Brenton if I could. I wanted to clarify. I understand that you are putting this motion forward as a self-sacrifice because the person who wanted to put it forward didn't feel safe. Something you said that even in their street they didn't feel safe. So do you have any knowledge of that person didn't feel supported by other neighbours, or?
Yeah, she doesn't have too many other. She's already made several reported apps on the Karratha thing. She's made police complaints, but the problem is the police come round and, you know, they check on the house and stuff. But then the problem is they go to her house to basically, you know, find out information and stuff. And it's like you just create a target on your back.
I don't think they're supposed to do that. But when you say it's reported, like because it's state housing, wouldn't they have to be reporting it to Department of Housing?
Communities.
Yeah, but they also, I know this residents use the Karratha reported app a few times to complain about the rubbish to rangers and stuff.
Oh, okay, that part of the complaint.
Yeah. So it's something our rangers have stopped around, but they issued like a 28-day notice, and it's, yeah.
I suppose.
It's a cycle.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Did you have more to say there?
No, that's fine. So yeah.
I guess, yeah, and point 4, initiate a public awareness campaign. You know, I think that's clearly needed because there are ways to report these things. I don't think enough people understand that you get yourselves together as a community in that street and report to the Department of Communities. That is a way of getting, you know, the data into Department of Communities and the police to get a solid reason as to why that person or people need to be rejected. And I've personally dealt with this in the street where it's been effective. And I actually see this as well, Brenton, as being something that could help if we move this forward with places like Newman, where they have a lot of these issues. and could become an advocacy effort, for the Pilbara.
I suppose a lot of it's also working in the current, Western Australian Residential Act as well. That's where most of the laws come from. So I suppose, I don't think maybe they're enforcing them on their tenants. So I think that's the other issue.
There's a lack of staff in the sector too. But that's where, they need to be staffing it properly.
That's something we can work as a council to work with everyone, like I said, all the stakeholders to try and
by bringing attention to it and giving them a list and pointing out a lot of these certain issues and stuff that are around. Like number 2, where it sort of says using ranger reports and police data, it really sort of shines a light on it and sort of says, it's sort of that name and shame mentality. I've seen a thing where they reckon if you go and have someone break into your house, we should be able to identify who that person is and, name and shame them and sort of say where they live and, make them accountable for the fact that they're breaking into someone else's house. Let us know where they live. Same as a paedophile list.
Could I just, I wasn't really finished before Dan started talking, but.
Oh, sorry, Sarah.
That's okay. My concern is, I feel like, I don't like talking for other people, but I feel like it's pretty agreeable that it's a very complex issue. If people are living in social housing, it's because they're of a lower socioeconomic group, but like any group of people like us sitting around the table, we're all very different. I know personally of people living at the end of my street, their children, or actually their grandchildren who they care for, go to school in the same class as my son, and they've got next door neighbours. They're in a set of units that are very famous for this sort of antisocial behaviour within them. And yeah, this grandmother fears for her life and her children's life or grandchildren's life. But I don't know that that sort of approach is going to, like, it might move the problem on, but we are the level of government that is grassroots that can actually try and make things a little bit better. I feel like I know our Meet the Street policy, despite being a really fantastic strategy, isn't very well upkept, but can we be looking at things like that a little bit more than, getting our pitchforks and fire and going to the people who are having issues to force them to turn to substances and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we're not here to debate it, obviously, but I think the administrative response does sort of pick up on the fact that this is these issues are complex. That they're both complex and they're both simple, right? So I'm hearing Councillor Johansson sort of saying, look, if there's a house and there's a problem, let's deal with the house and deal with the problem. So there's that level. And then we're also talking about some of these, if we've got a massive housing crisis, and then what happens is people who are in massive housing crisis and community, there's not enough community housing and social supportive housing. And so then you get overcrowding and you get a magnification of problems with people who are living in really desperate situations. So they're complex issues that are hard for us to fix. So I do think I like the idea of us folding it into our broader advocacy approach on housing. I think it fits there. I think this is a layer of housing that's really important. I think the state government needs to come to the table. We can, your comment, Brenton, is, let's hold the state government accountable. I think by bringing public awareness and shifting into that advocacy mode and making sure that we're pushing all these buttons, I think we do hold the state government to accountable as an outcome.
I think when I did that one, what I really wanted on there, which I knew wouldn't pass, is to actually hold the state accountable for if you have a house that has these sort of tenants next door to you, they compensate you for the loss of value in your property compared to other properties in the market. Yeah. And even to the extent of some of the corporations that we're waiving rates for, if their homes have gone into the state are the same as these state homes and they're getting rates currently for free, they're getting their rates waived. Well, shouldn't the neighbours get their rates waived too for having to deal with living next door to these property owners? Like, that's some of the things I wanted in there, but I knew that probably wouldn't pass.
Well, that's where you're being a politician, right? And you're starting to you know, you're thinking about what will.
But I do think we should give rate discounts to anyone that has to live next door to these homes and don't feel safe.
Well, I think what's important though is that that the CEO prepare a formal report identifying the properties, you know, and that we you know, then use that information in part with our advocacy to the relevant ministers to let them know, because I doubt they really know.
That's what I mean. They don't know.
Yeah.
This is more about saying something.
I think it's also like, I don't feel like that reads these people must be kicked out of their house.
No,
I feel like it very much reads make the state accountable for their tenants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we know kicking them out is a problem, but yeah, I do like the fact that in all of that, it doesn't say this worst case scenario get lost, because we know that that's tricky. So
I make the tenants realise more people are starting to, you know, pay attention to what's going on, rather than it just continuing.
Well, consequences for your actions.
Yeah.
Better I get it. Better get prepped on my media response.
Sounds like.
Yeah, I think I was advised it would open up a can of worms.
Oh, look, I think it's these are really pressing issues in our community, so we can, you know, and it's so we do have conversations with department committees and police on a regular basis, so we can be, you know, trying to advocate for people who are struggling. So.
Yeah, if we can get
And
this.
there's no win situation in this. Last
No.
people have paid $1 million for their home. You know, that's and they're proud of their home. So it's this is no win.
And raising this is helping department communities. It's helping the police.
I think you're
it's
right.
helping the
Picking up the slack where they're short staffed at the moment too. That's the thing.
these
They should be.
departments that are dealing with it all the time. This is going to support them, you know, because you know, their voice to their seniors in government, are they getting heard? Probably not.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
How does everyone feel?
Yeah,
Any more questions?
I'm gonna go home yet. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay, well that one's there. We've got it. Any suggestions?
Through
Email to Brenton, and we can get that on Monday. 15 questions by minute, blah blah. 16 nothing.
We've got 2 confidential
We've
items.
got 2 confidential items.
So I might need to put Simon with the pizza. Saying.
Yep. So we're going to have to get the public to relocate themselves.
Where's the pizza?
Okay. Moment close it out. Thank you, everyone.
I know.
Thank you.